Alrighty, guys. So, like I said, what we're chatting about in today's lesson is just revising patterns and relationships, because this is going to form the foundation of one of the very, very important topics that we do in maths, which is functions. So looking at graphs. So if we can do this stuff, hopefully graphs will be a lot easier. Ooh, I'm exhausted. Alrighty, so we know, if you were with us for the patterns and relationships section, we know that there's lots of different ways to represent relationships. And we spoke about 4 different ways. We spoke about flow diagrams, tables, formulas, and we spoke about graphs. So what we're going to look at here today is looking at the flow diagrams, the tables, the formulas, because all of these lead us into eventually graphs. So what we have here is a flow diagram. Hopefully what we remember from a flow diagram is the fact that there's like a number machine. We have got some numbers that we put into our machine. So these are our input numbers. Our input numbers are generally represented by the variable x. A whole bunch of operations happen to those numbers. We can do lots of operations. In this case, we've just got 2. And then we end up with an output value. Now, this output value we generally represent with the variable y. So if we have a look at our number machine or our flow diagram, and we just consider the first input value. This input value goes into our number machine, and we've got -1 times 2. That gives us a product of -2. We move along our number machine, and we now say -2 plus 1. And that gives us a final output of -1. So we've got a y value of -1. So we are able to apply the operations, apply the rule that the flow diagram tells us to do in order to find output values. So grade 8, what I want from you is in the chat, answers for A and B. You can try C if you want, but you can see that the input is X, so it is a little bit different. But I want you to try and find for me the outputs of inputs of 0 and 3. So follow your flow diagram, follow the rule, and on the chat, I want to see answers for A and B. If you want to try C, but I definitely want A and B. Remember to apply your rule correctly, step by step. Good, grade 8s. Those of you trying C, good on you. Well done for giving it a try. All right, so if we start with 0, 0 times 2 is 0. Remember, anything times 0 is 0. So 0 plus 1 is 1. If we then look at our next input, we've got 3. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So A is 1, B is 7. But now we get to that final sort of input where we've got X. So if we follow our, what did I call it, number machine, X times 2 gives us a product of 2X. If we now continue along our machine and say 2x plus 1, remember those are not like terms, so I can't actually add them together. And so what I get here is that the output y is found by 2x, or 2 times x plus 1. What this has done, or what this is doing for me, is this is finding that formula for the general rule. Now, what we need to remember is that a general rule allows us to work out any input or output according to whatever pattern we're working with. Allows us. So I'm going to do some examples to do this. But basically, once you have a rule, you can find any input, any output. Doesn't matter. I have to give you some information, but you can use the formula to go and work out an input or an output value. Right, so we have just worked out that our rule here is y is equal to 2x plus 1. That is our general rule for this pattern or this flow diagram. So I'm going to ask you two questions. My first question to you, if I can number things correctly, is determine the output value when your input, or when x is equal to 21. And my second question is determine the input value now if our output is equal to 47. All right, so this is sort of relating to what I was talking about over here. It is relating to us being able to determine any input or any output as long as we've got that rule. If we've got that rule, we can do pretty much anything with this formula as long as we're using the formula. Right, so if we go on the side here and we go and answer these questions, just because I'm obviously running out of space, and we start with question A. What we need to realize is I'm asking you to determine the output. So I'm asking you to find y, and I'm giving you the value for x. So we need to substitute this into our formula to go and find y. So y is equal to 2x plus 1. We are looking for y, so y is going to stay there for now. That's what I'm trying to find. But I know that x is 21, so I substitute that in. So I've got 2 times 21 plus 1. 2 times 21 is 42 plus 1. And so what we get is that we've got an output of 43. If I've got an input, if I take this number 21 and I put it into my machine, I'm going to get an output of 43. Okay, so again, we have been given, excuse me, we have been given our input, we can go and work out our output. On the flip side, I can give you an output and ask you to find an input. So here I'm asking you to determine the input. So I'm asking you to determine x if I've given you y. So again, we want to substitute this value in. We know what our rule is. Y is equal to 2x plus 1. We replace y with 47. And someone beautifully said there on the chat, and I can't remember who it was. Wandler's put there a hint for us. We now need to use inverse operations to solve this equation. Now, guys, we haven't done equations yet in Watobe. We're going to start them next term, but you should remember solving equations from grade 7. Inverse operations tells me that if I want to solve x, I need to get rid of the things around it. So I need to use the opposite operation of what I have to solve for x. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides to get 2x alone. So this becomes 46 is equal to 2x. Now remember, the goal is I want x. So I need to get rid of this 2. I divide it away on both sides. And so what I end up with is that x, whoopsie daisies, is equal to 20. X is equal to 23. If you divide 46 by 2, you end up with 23. And so what you've done is you've determined your input value when I gave you the output. So guys, this is what you need to be able to start doing when it comes to patterns and relationships. You need to be able to start using your formulas in order to solve for different things. All right, so someone asked me to zoom out a bit. I hope that works. There's nothing else on the side, so you should get everything. So grade 8, take a screenshot of this. Ask me any questions. So if you want to raise your hand to ask me a question, please do. But essentially what you need to take away from this is that a flow diagram lets us find a rule, and we need to be able to use the rule to solve for different values. Okay, Watobe.
Ma'am, what if there was one value missing? How do we find the row?
What do you mean one value missing?
For example, if times 2 wasn't there, but there was one at the other side.
So if I didn't give you that situation over there.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, then your rule would just be +1. But if I expected you to be able to do another operation, I'd have to give it to you, or I would have to give you like a number pattern and ask you to find the rule, which we are going to do just now. So I might not give you a flow diagram. I might give you a list of numbers, ask you to work out the pattern, ask you to work out the rule, and then go and solve for different things. But I can't expect you to know there's a ×2 there if I don't give it to you or don't somehow lead you to that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. All right, so guys, flow diagrams and formulas, or these equations, are two of the ways that we need to be able to work with relationships. The formula, so this y is equal to 2x plus 1, is probably the more important of the two representations, because that's what we're going to use more and more of. But using a flow diagram is so important, and so important for you to be able to understand. Right, so what we have here is our next type of representation, which is tables. So I'm just changing our rules a little bit because, you know. So we have got tables here. I'm going to explain the tables now in a second, but these are the rules I want us to use. Let's go -3, why not? Alrighty, so we have got two sets of tables here. Our tables have a rule each. So we've got y is equal to 1/2 x minus 3, and we've got y is equal to -2x minus 2. We can see in our tables, we have been given all of the input values in table 1, and in table 2, I'm going to add on a block here in a second. But again, we've been given some input values that we now need to use in according to our rule. So for both of these tables, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing, which is basically fill in the missing values. Right, so I want to fill in that last block there for myself. So give me 2 seconds. Right, so in the first one, I want you to work out all of our outputs here. So I'm just going to number them 1, 2, 3, and so on. And for the second one, I want all of our outputs again. So let's maybe label this A to not get confused between the two. But what you'll see in the second question is that I don't know my alphabet, E, F, G, H, I, J. What you'll see in the second one is that K is actually in the top row. So K is an input value. Right, so so Ovayo, let's have a look. So for the first one, it's a little bit trickier because of that half. If we go and have a look at the first one, so I'm going to do the first answer with you. I'm giving you what X is. So we have got Y is equal to 1/2 X minus 3. And as Ovayo said there, guys, remember the operation between half and X is times. So this is saying 1/2 times -3 minus 3. So 1/2 times -3, sorry, my brain there, is -3/2, or you can say -1.5, it doesn't matter. But now we've got -1.5 minus 3, and that gives us -4.5 or -9/2. You can write it either way, I really don't mind. I personally prefer fractions, so I'm gonna write it I would write it as a fraction, but I know that the decimal makes a little bit more sense. So I'm going to write it as -4.5. So what I want from you guys, let's start with just A. Let's not run before we can walk. If we just look at A, I want you to tell me the answers or the outputs for 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, blah, blah. So for the rest of this table, I want the outputs here if we follow this rule. I've shown you how to do it with the first one. So now you need to use the rest of these inputs and find the outputs for me.
Okay, now it's that time where we need to do everything. So what we're gonna do right now is that you are working out all these numbers. Okay, you're working out 2, 3, 4 until 10. Once you have that written somewhere, you need to raise your hand so that you can give us all the numbers. Remember that if you give me a wrong number, I'm gonna humbly stop you. Okay, I'm trying not to be rude, but I'll stop you and give another one, because we're making it like another person to give me the numbers, because we're making it a competition. Okay, because it's a revision, we're just trying to make it as fun as we can. So let's see who's going to get this thing first. So I really need you to be focused, get all those numbers right. The nice thing is that you get these numbers and you look at the rule and you work out all the correct answers without any mistakes. Okay. Noted, teacher Sam. Noted. I got you. So let's go, my people. Okay. So you need to give all these answers, and when you are done, when you are done writing it on your book, you need to raise your hand. Anyone who's done, raise your hand, and I will definitely unmute you, and you will have to read all these numbers, all of them, without explaining how you got them. Okay. So that's what I'm looking for, guys. Let's go, my peps. We can do this. Luba, are you saying that you're done? You need to put all of it until 6. So I need 2 until 6. 2 until 10. Why are these numbers like that? Oh yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you need to give me all the answers from 2 until 10. Let's go. Anyone who's done, raise your hand up. Let's see who gets the trophy of 2.A. Let's see who gets it correct. Let's go, my people. Let's see. I'm waiting with my drums. Really like anxious. Like, is it going to be a boy or is it going to be a girl? I always call everyone Mugal. So in the last class, I called the guy and I was like, Mugal instead of Mugai, because I didn't know. Okay, but Nala has come into our rescue. Remember, everyone, you are still working out, okay? You can still work it out. Remember, it's a revision, and if you don't get these numbers and we've written here, Teacher Sam can still help us, okay? So I know that to some of you, it might seem like it's fast, but please, we do slow down, as in like, we'll give you a chance to raise your hand to ask any questions that you might have, okay? We just want to make it like fun for everyone who have been in the classes starting from January, because we did this this work with Teacher Sam, okay? Bunola, we are all yours. So let me just get to my answers. Let's go, Bunola, read them out.
Hi, ma'am. Okay.
Hi,
So, ma'am,
Mona.
for -2, ma'am, is negative. Oh, for number 2 is -4.
Uh-huh.
Number 3 is -3,5.
Uh-huh.
For number 4 is -3.
Yes, girl. Let's go.
Number 5 is -2,5.
Yes, girl.
Number 6 is -2.
Yes.
Number 7 is -1,5.
Uh-huh.
Number 8 is -1.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9 it's 0,5.
Positive or negative?
Oh, negative 0.5.
Teacher Sam, you cheated. Teacher Sam, you cheated. I've cheated. Bunola, I was about to kick you out, girl. Like, no, you know when you get it wrong and it does the, I was about to do that. What's the last one? Bunola, you're doing great.
It's 0, ma'am.
Good.
Well done, girl. Well done. You did the things.
I'm so sorry, Yolanda. I did not mean to mute you. I was trying to mute myself because I was having a coughing fit. I apologize.
I don't even realize the way that I'm talking a lot. You get number B. It's okay.
Oh.
It's okay. Okay. Nice, guys. Nicely done. Is there anyone who has questions, though? So anyone who didn't get these numbers, now is that time when you raise your hand and you can ask, how did we get a number that you didn't get here? Okay. So please communicate with us. Please raise your hand so that we can help you. I know that that was fast, but it's because we just trying to have a little bit of a fun because we've done this work. So please, if you didn't understand how we got these numbers because you have tried and you didn't get all these numbers, raise your hand, please. We want to help you.
Okay, so guys,
Okay,
while
my
you're copying
people.
that down and while you're checking those answers, remember this is through substitution. So like I did there in green. But hopefully what you can see as Bernardo was reading out those answers, there's a pattern, right? So if we have a look, if we add a half to -4.5, we get -4. If we add a half to -4, we get -3.5. And if we keep adding halves, we are actually getting, that was a weird situation that I just had going on there. If we keep adding a half, we keep getting the next output. And this is why the coefficient to x in my rule is a half. Remember, that coefficient tells me what I'm adding or subtracting each time. This Eddie? Sorry, I don't actually know if, no, I did.
I don't understand. How did she get to like -4?
Okay, so if we go and have a look at -4, here we are. Okay, so this one over here. If we take our rule, we've got y is equal to a half x minus 3. And remember I said it's a half times x. So we would say a half times -2 because that's my input or my x value. And then we subtract 3. Now a half times -2 is -1. And -1 minus 3 gives us -4. So it's all through the substitution of our x values into our rule. I don't know what's happening. Okay, so Lucidi, I hope that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. Sorry, guys. I don't know. My screen had a mind of its own there for a second. So you can use substitution, absolutely. But once you see what the pattern is, there's actually no need for you to use substitution. So for me, obviously, I've been doing this a lot longer than you guys, but once I saw what the pattern was, I didn't even bother to substitute those x values. I just said, okay, cool. I'm adding a half each time. Let me keep adding a half and let me get my output values. So there's different ways to do these things. And once you see the pattern, use the pattern. But essentially, if you are stuck, you always just substitute into your formula and you can get your outputs. Right, guys. So I'd given you, there was a second question. I just didn't ask you to do it all at the same time. I'm going to make that a touch smaller for you, just so that you can see what we were doing in the first question, and hopefully it'll help you for the second one. But I want you to do the same thing here. Our rule is y is equal to -2x minus 2. And I want the outputs from A to J, and then be careful, K is actually an input. Now, guys, I am going to do the first one with you because I don't want us to make silly mistakes with signs. So if we look at this first situation here for A, our rule is y is equal to -2x minus 2. If we substitute our input value of -3, we've got y is equal to -2 times -3 minus 2. Now remember, a negative times a negative is a positive. So this is +6 minus 2. which gives us an output of 4. So please be careful of your sign when you are multiplying. Right, so I want you to do the rest there, and I want you to try and find for me the value of k, bearing in mind that k is actually an input value. So just be very careful of what k is here. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to wait for your answers on the chat, and then we will pick the person who gives it to us, and we will ask them to help us out.
Killer. I think you're my new person. You're my new B. So are you done with all those answers until E? No, K. You can unmute on your side. You can press the button, please. There we go. And do you have those numbers ready? Hello? Hello,
Carl,
hello.
you there?
Going once, going twice. Okay, my newbie. We'll learn that in this class, we normally just give a 5-second rule. If someone is not snitching, we give another person in there. Okay, Sonwa, are you ready? Sonwa. How do I pronounce your name, Sonwa? Sonwa.
Sunwabiso, ma'am. Sunwabiso.
Sunwabiso.
Yes, ma'am.
Nice. Okay, do you have those numbers ready for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, mention them. Let's hear.
Ma'am, in question B, it's 2.
Mm-hmm.
In question C, it's
you can just mention the numbers. It's okay.
0,
Uh-huh.
-2,
Uh-huh.
-4,
Yes.
-6,
Uh-huh.
-8,
Yes.
-10,
Yes.
-12,
Yes. You got this.
-14,
Yes. What's the
and
last one?
7. And 7, ma'am.
Ooh.
Okay,
So that's the only one you got wrong. But Snobiso, I want you to stay there. Okay, don't worry. We'll do corrections all together. Okay, don't lower your hand. I'm gonna mute you. Someone is gonna help us, and when they get it right, they will explain. And then I want you to let me know if you understand their explanation. Okay, so just remain there. And thank you so much. Woo! Oh, I saw a hand. Who has an answer for K for me? Liahilwe, let's go. Liahilwe, what's the answer?
Ma'am, it's 53.
Oh, Siabilo, that was so close. But I want you also to stay on the line, okay? I want you to stay on the line. Senzo, I'm coming to you. Let's go, Senzo. What's the answer? Oh, this is exciting.
It's 53, ma'am.
Oh,
No, Senzo, that's not
Which
it.
answer, ma'am?
Stay on the line, please. Stay on the line. Luno, I'm coming to you. Guys, who has this trophy tonight?
I am
I don't know.
51.
good.
The trophy goes to the girls, guys. Anyway, so Noabi is a boy, so you guys really did well. Luna, do you want to explain to us how did you get 51, my dear?
No problem.
Yes, let's go for it. I love the spirit.
So I took the
put, which is y, then that is negative 104. And then I
Mhm.
said plus 2 negative 2x minus 2, which is the rule.
Mhm.
And then inverse operation, I said negative 2, and then that negative I said plus 104. And then I said 2x divided by
I'm lost
2,
already.
and then 102, that is the answer I got, divided by 2, and then I got 51.
Oh,
Okay, good.
girl, your explanation makes sense, but Teacher Sam will help us out before I call on Sunwabi and Senzo. Teacher Sam, take us
Alrighty.
through. Well done, girl.
Nice. So guys, very importantly, use your rule. I gave you an output, like was said. This is equal to y. I gave you what y was. So use the output to go and find x. So I think Lunofefe actually sorted out the signs earlier, which is absolutely fine. I'm just going to carry on like this because this is sort of going with the rule. So we add 2 on both sides. Negative 104 plus 2 is negative 102 is equal to 2x. And now we want to divide both sides by negative 2, because remember, we want just x. We don't want anything in front of the x except for that positive 1. A negative divided by negative is a positive, and 102 divided by 2 is 51. So x is equal to 51 here. All right. Sorry. So that is how we would get the value of k in this case. Right, so guys, just quickly back to, and I think it was Sonobiso who had said 7 initially. And I think that's what a lot of people will do. And I'd actually never thought of it, but it makes sense, because if we look at our table, the table's decreasing in 1. So logic should say the very next one should be 7. But we need to double check what the output is. Now, this is where we go back to what is actually happening in my table. I can see that each time I'm subtracting 2. And that continues all the way along my table. So logic should tell me that from negative 14, if I subtract 2 and I'm not getting negative 16, this definitely can't be the next term. And because that's negative 104, it definitely can't be the 7th term. So we're going to have to go and work it out. Sometimes what they'll do in the tables, they'll have the whole long table, so 5, 6, and then what they'll do is they'll put a dot, 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 and then they'll carry on with, say, for example, K or whatever the case is. But just bear in mind that if it no longer follows the pattern, it probably means it's some term later on in your sequence. Again, guys, negative 2 or subtraction of 2 each time, because that was my coefficient to x. That tells me what I'm adding or subtracting each time. All right, so I'm making that a bit smaller in case you want to screenshot anything. So Noviso and Senzo, I'm hoping that makes sense. Hopefully. Good.
Okay, so now, do you guys want to give us thumbs up or thumbs down? So Nobiso and Senzo, let us know if you do understand the correction. So now, do you wanna? Oh, okay. I saw your thumbs up. Nice, Mugai. Thank you so much. And Senzo, are you good? Nice. Thank you, Sonobiso. Senzo, where are you? Are you good? We don't want to leave anyone under the bus. I saw my mistake, ma'am. Nice, Senzo, nice. Is there anyone, if we're going so fast for you, now is that time when we are slowing down just for you? Please, 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 if you didn't get any of these numbers, and also you don't know how you can get them, please raise your hand so Teacher Sam and I can help you, can assist you, okay? Chantal, I love that blanket on you. I think like you're really feeling warm right now. Yes, girl, you. I'm checking up on everyone. Don't think that I'm not looking. I'm looking at every single one of you. So is there anyone with questions? No? Okay, we'll do a poll, soon. So if you say that, oh, it was fast, then I'm going to get like mad at you because I'm asking you now. Sorry, I'm putting my frustrations on y'all, guys.
Linda is on fire tonight, and I'm loving it. I'm so here for this.
So we better vote nicely, okay? Because Teacher Sam and I are giving you time to express yourself. Okay, take screenshots, my people. I love you. You know that. Sometimes I joke. So take screenshots. take screenshots and we can move on. Okay, y'all are doing really great.
Well,
Oh, Lubanzi is yeah. You see?
last
go,
minute
Lubanzi.
station.
Ask your question.
Ma'am, how did we get 53? I mean 51, sorry.
Okay, so have a look here at the green. It was through substitution. So remember our rule was y equals minus 2x minus 2, and I'm giving you the y value. So I substituted it in and then I solved for x. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so using inverse operations, we can go and solve for x. Now, guys,
Okay, thank you.
that is a slightly harder one. So like it's more than reasonable to struggle with those sorts of questions when you're having to find x, because it's not an easy, straightforward substitution, get your answer. Like I say, you have to use your inverse operations. You have to actually go and solve, and it's not just a quick, immediate get your answer. Okay. Can you please don't stress, the poll is coming. We haven't put it up yet. We will give you the poll. It's going to pop up on your screen, so don't stress, it's coming. Alrighty, guys. So I'm just going to jump a smidge and we are going to have a look at this situation over here. Really doesn't matter. But this is now an example where I've just given you a set of numbers, and my expectation is that you now need to go and answer a bunch of questions. I obviously haven't put questions here because we're going to chat about things as we go along. So my very first question to you, and I'm not even going to write it down, is what is the pattern here? What's going on? So in the chat, what is the pattern? I want a few more answers before I just assume that we're all okay. Good. All right. So whenever you encounter a number pattern like this, where we just give you a list of numbers, that's the first thing I always want you to do. Don't even look at the question. So I don't know how many of you get reading time in your exams, but in your reading time, the first thing you do when you see a number pattern is you figure out, what is my pattern? What am I doing? So we can see that if we subtract 4 each time, I'm getting from one output to the next. -2 minus 4, minus 6, minus 6 minus 4, minus 10, minus 10 minus 4, minus 14, etc., etc. Once you know what the pattern is, it becomes a whole lot easier to answer any questions that I might ask you. So my first question to you is nice and easy. I want you to write down the next 5 terms. So on the chat there, tell me what the next 5 terms to this pattern are. So if you carry on this pattern, what will be the next 5 numbers? Double check your signs. Sadie, are you wanting to give me an answer? Is that why your hands up? Okay. Right, so wonderful, guys. Just remember, you need to, oh, there we go. Sadie, do you want to give me an answer?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there we go. Right, what the next 5 terms?
The first one is negative 18,
Good,
negative 22,
good,
negative 26, negative 30,
good.
and negative 35. 34.
Good, well done. Alrighty, guys, so exactly as Lissetti said there, we keep subtracting 4 and we get our next 5 terms. Really nothing too tricky about that. We can get our terms. Excuse me. So you need to be able to carry on a pattern based on this. And this is why I'm saying always start by identifying what your pattern is. But now the next thing that we need to be able to do is we need to be able to determine our general rule or the general formula. No. Boy, for the pattern. Okay, now guys, we've spoken about 2 ways to do this. You can either use TN or you can use X and Y. For this example, I really don't mind what you choose to use. I will do both so that you can see, but you can use TN equals or you can use Y equals. So I want you to try and work out the general rule for this pattern. Now remember, general rule looks like what we had going here. Y equals minus 2x minus 2. Y equals a half x minus 3. It is some equation that gives us or allows us to work out any term in our sequence. So I want you to try that for me. Which one do I? 2 and 3. I think you mean the tables. I'll go back to the tables once we're done here and you can take a screenshot. Just remind me if I don't do it. Junior, I see your hands up. Is everything okay? There should be a pop-up to unmute yourself. If not, you can pop your question in the chat and I can help you. There we go.
No, ma'am, I don't understand the general rule formula.
Okay, so we're going to do it now, but basically what you need to do is you need to find a rule that follows this pattern. So you can So you need to have y equals something happening to x that describes this pattern. So if you're struggling a little bit, don't stress. We're going to go through it now. Then make sure you understand it when we go through, okay?
Yes.
Right, I'm seeing some promising things on the chat so far. Remember, guys, if you're going to use TN, it's TN equals and then something happening with N. I'm going to do both for you. Or if you're going to use Y, it's Y equals something happening to X. So don't mix them up. You shouldn't have Y and N. It's Y and X or TN and N. I'm going to give you another minute and then I'm going to discuss it. Rotundo, I'm going to go back up to the tables just to point something out. So if you want to take a screenshot when I go back, just get ready for that. Because I'm going to go back up to the tables now in a second. And that goes for everyone else. They just asked. It's okay if you're confused. This is a slightly harder question. Remember, we're trying to find a rule. So if you look on the chat, you're trying to find something like that. Y equals something or TN equals something. Okay, so I'm going back to the tables. If you didn't get screenshots of it, I suggest you do it now. And the reason I'm going back to the tables is to point out something I have already pointed out, but maybe we weren't listening. Okay, so guys, what I want to point out here is the fact that, and I need to find, is the fact that if you look at the rule and if you look at what we said we were adding or subtracting each time, the number in front of X, so in this case in 2A, it was a half. That was the number I was adding or subtracting each time. In question B, I was subtracting 2 each time. -2 was my number in front of x. So by knowing the pattern, by knowing what I'm adding or subtracting each time, this helps me get to my pattern. It doesn't, to my pattern, to my rule. It doesn't get me the full rule. I still have to do a little bit of work, but it helps me get to where I want to be. Okay, I'm waiting 2 seconds. Screenshots. Let's go, let's go. Righto. So if we go back to what we were talking about here, we know what we're adding or subtracting each time. We know that we are subtracting 4. And so what we know is that this -4 is our coefficient to x in our rule. If you're not using x and you're using n, it's the coefficient to n in our rule. Really doesn't matter. Okay. So automatically what I have for this answer is I now know the first term is going to be y is equal to -4x. Because remember, we're subtracting 4 each time. That is the coefficient. Now that isn't my whole rule. Like I've said, I still need to do a bit more. So this is now where we do those checks we spoke about in this course when we did it. If I take, and remember your inputs are 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are your term numbers. These are your outputs. If we take x equals 1, we know we want an output of -2. So let's see what we get if we use what we have so far. Y is equal to -4 times 1. -4 times 1 is -4. But I don't want -4. I want -2. So the question is, how do I make it -2? Well, I know that if I go and add 2 to that, I'm going to get -2. And that's exactly the output that I want. So what that's telling me is that to my rule, I need to add 2. Now we always just double check ourselves, just in case we've made a silly mistake somewhere. If I do a quick check of what I'm doing, let's now go to x equals 2. If x equals 2, I know I want an output of -6. So y is equal to -4 times 2 plus 2. -4 times +2 is -8. And -8 plus 2 is -6. That is exactly what I wanted. And so what I know is that my rule of y is equal to -4x plus 2 is correct. Now, guys, it has to be -4x. You are subtracting 4. If you've got 4n, it means your pattern's increasing. This is not. This is decreasing. It's getting more and more negative. Okay, but essentially, that is how we work out a pattern. If we know what we're adding or subtracting each time, and it's the same thing each time, we can go and work out our rule from there. If you're going to use Tn, which is absolutely fine, your answer would be Tn is equal to -4n plus 2. Hopefully what you see in this case is that Tn is y, means the same thing. So if you can work out y and x, you can work out t and n. And then n directly translates to x. So if you know what it is in terms of x and y, you know what it is in terms of t and n. So guys, when you're finding this general rule, just think about what your pattern is. What are you adding or subtracting each time? That is where you start. You can then build from there your actual rule that you need to work with. Right.